Hello and welcome to Devil's Advocate. The Prime Minister has spoken, but growth has fallen to a new and disappointing low. So today we ask, how does Indian industry respond to the situation? My guest is the chairman of the Godrej Group and former president of CII, Adi Godrej. Mr. Godrej, let's start with the Prime Minister's statement in Parliament. Are you reassured and has he lifted your confidence levels? Or do you feel he's spoken generalities and mainly repeated things said several times previously by Mr. Chidambaram?
Well, I think the Prime Minister spoke as I would expect him to speak, not committing himself too much in that speech to the Parliament. I think he was trying to justify why things were as they are. I think he has overlooked some facts in that speech. I think one of the biggest mistakes we made when we brought in retrospective amendments in a budget 2 years ago on the Vodafone case after a good Supreme Court judgment, I think that created a tremendous negative perception of India on foreign shores. I think some of the other things, actions we have taken against foreign companies on tax matters has also created a negative perception. He forgot that one of the biggest problems has been that ease of doing business in India has always been poor, and it has worsened considerably in the recent past, according to all the ratings, including the World Bank ratings.
Now,
these are some of the causes for the bad economic situation we are in today. Now, obviously, he was as defensive as you would expect him to be.
Mr. Godrej, one of the issues that deeply concerns Indian industry today is the Food Security Bill and the Land Allocation Bill. Those were subjects on which the Prime Minister was deafeningly silent. Do you get the impression that he's dismissive of industry's concerns regarding these two bills?
Well, Karan, those are clearly political moves. We've known all along when the bills were introduced and when the act was passed also by the Lok Sabha that these are political issues. They will help solve certain social problems, but it's going to make, especially the land acquisition bill is going to make things very difficult especially for industry, housing and infrastructure, because cost of land acquisitions will rise very considerably. That will lead to increasing cost of projects. It will mean that India's competitiveness will be negatively affected, and we must realize that this is not the best for economic growth. However, if you look at the social justice point of view, I think both these bills will help improve social justice to a certain extent.
Except, can I interrupt? Can I interrupt there? The Prime Minister completely ignored your concerns with the land allocation bill and the fact that this would hold up investment, it would hold up development of industry. Does that silence from the Prime Minister disturb and worry you?
No, but Karan, you must realize that both these bills have been discussed for a very long time. Industry's concerns have been expressed earlier. Some changes have been made to meet those concerns.
Okay.
You can't expect at this stage, when the bill has been brought in and it has been passed by the Lok Sabha, that they will refer to the concerns of industry. They think they are doing the right thing by the country, and they will obviously not look at industry's concern on this at this stage.
You're being very understanding. Let me bring up another issue of the Prime Minister's speech. Do you accept his point that the fundamentals of the Indian economy are strong and it's only experiencing what he believes is temporary turbulence? Or, looking at the disappointing and worryingly low growth figure brought in by Q1 of just 4.4%, do you believe that structural measures are now needed, which the government is either shying away from or at least not acknowledging?
Well, the GDP figures announced this afternoon were very low, 4.4% GDP growth, especially industrial output, which was down by a little over 1%. I think that's of great concern. But I would agree with the Prime Minister if he had added the medium to long-term economy seems to be in good shape. I expect India will start growing well in the second half of this financial year, with the agricultural output likely to be very good. It will have multiplier effects. So I expect the second half should be better than the first half. And clearly, there's no question that the medium to long-term outlook for the Indian economy is good. Our demography is very positive. Obviously, we have to take the right steps. I hope we will take the right steps. And I am very confident.
Can I stop you there?
To long term.
You say obviously we have to take the right steps. What are the top 3 steps that are needed to be taken?
Well, immediately one of the biggest problems is the acute depreciation of the rupee. It has depreciated far more than was necessary from the inflation point of view.
So
I think 57 to 60 is understandable. Anything over 60 can be very damaging to the economy.
What would you like the government to do? What would you like the government to do?
Stock market.
What would you like the government to do?
The government clearly should have defended the rupee, not let it depreciate to the 69 level it did. Fortunately, they have taken a couple of steps. So from the level of 69 a couple of days ago, it has come down to less than 66 today. I think we should bring the rupee back into a 57 to 60 range. If that takes place, and with the good agricultural output, we can look to accelerated growth in the second half.
Let's just stick to the rupee for a moment. There are 2 large, ominous, worrying clouds on the rupee's horizon. The first is the fact that United States is going to start tapering off its quantitative easing perhaps as early as next month. And the second is the sharply increasing oil price, which analysts predict could go up to perhaps even as much as $130 to the barrel. In that situation, do you believe the government should vigorously use its reserves to defend the rupee, or would that be risky and unwise?
No, I think some of the reserves should be used. The rupee should not be allowed to depreciate too much. Of course, if you use up some of the reserves, we must find ways of getting those reserves back to the earlier level. There's a lot that can be done to attract remittances from Indians abroad. Already remittances have started growing. The current account deficit can be controlled through restricting gold imports and taking other steps. But I think the most important steps we need to take for the medium term is to make ease of doing business better in the country. A bad situation of ease of doing business in the country has deteriorated in the last couple of years, and we've got to make a concerted effort to see that in all spheres, doing business in India is not intimidating.
What is it that needs to be done to make ease of doing business easier? What is that critical step that you want?
First of all, these constant permissions required to be taken from government in various spheres should be done away with. E-applications for all businesses should be increased. Some states have done it with success. We should do much more of it. And this sort of a thing that the Cabinet Committee of Investment has been formed should have been done much earlier and should be very active. In the recent past, some work has been done to clear projects. I think the government complains of lack of investment. I think they should realize that some of the lower investments are because people who want to invest are delayed in their investment.
Let's come back to the current account deficit. It's one of the 2 great challenges that the government faces at the moment. The finance minister is confident, and the prime minister repeated that confidence, that the government will ensure it doesn't exceed $70 billion or 3.7% of GDP. The key question is, can India avail and make sure that it gets the necessary international flow of funds to finance the CAD at that level? Do you believe that's possible, or do you think once again they'll have to dip into their reserves?
No, I think we can do it quite easily in the medium term. If we keep the CAD to 70 billion, the current account deficit to $70 billion, already remittances from Indians are increasing dramatically because obviously they get more rupees for their dollar. I think in other areas also we can attract more funds. We can even float sovereign bonds if we need to. So clearly we have the time to do it, and we certainly can. So I feel if we take strong steps on defending the rupee currently and take the steps we have and encourage exports. Unfortunately, when things were going well for exports, we removed some of the incentives for exports. We should restore them.
the second worrying deficit, and some would say it's even more worrying than the current account deficit, is the fiscal deficit. Now, with Q1 growth just 4.4%, there's absolutely no way that we're going to achieve the budget target for the full year of 6.4. With the rupee depreciating and oil prices going up, clearly the 65,000 allocation for petroleum subsidies and fertilizers will be more than missed. And finally, with the market so volatile at the moment, the disinvestment target of 40,000 is going to be missed as well. In those circumstances, do you believe Mr. Chidambaram when he says he'll definitely make 4.8, or do you have doubts?
No, I don't have doubts. I think he'll meet it. Remember, people had a lot of doubts about his promises on last year's fiscal deficit. He did better than his promise, and I think he'll do it. I expect that things like diesel price increase, a one-time diesel price increase of about 4 rupees a litre, we'll see within the next week or two. I think fertilizer prices will also be increased, so there would be steps taken to contain the fiscal deficit.
Do you really believe that you're going to see a 4 rupee increase in diesel prices in the coming weeks? Remember, this is an election year. And secondly, do you really believe that Mr. Chidambaram can repeat what he did last year, which is when he cut expenditure by an astonishing 92,000 crore to bring the fiscal deficit onto target? Can he do it again when elections are just 9 months, maybe even less away?
Well, Karan, for example, diesel price increases, we've not heard of any complaints about 2 or 3 rupees price increases that have already been effected. Diesel prices don't affect the common man directly too much.
They kick up transport, and they kick up the price of
much on kerosene.
They kick up transport costs. They kick up transport costs, and as a result, the cost of vegetables and other things that are transported go up as well. You believe this government has the guts to take those tough decisions?
Yes, but I think now with the good agricultural season, generally agricultural prices will be reasonably under control now in this year. You must remember last year we had a very bad monsoon. Against then we have an exceptionally good monsoon.
In which case, I'm going to take a break at that point. And when I come back, I'm going to turn to what your impression and image is of the economic leadership. You clearly believe that although tough decisions are needed, this government has the capacity to take them. You don't share the doubts of many others who feel that, in fact, this government will shy away. In which case, after the break, I'm going to ask you, what is your opinion of the triumvirate that takes the political decisions in India? And do you believe, as Mr. Tata has said, that the world has lost confidence in India, or do you disagree with Ratan Tata? All of that in a moment's time. See you after the break.